Welcome to Get Serious. At Serious Land Capital, we funded over $6 million worth of deals and have industry leading 41% operating margins. So today I really wanted to dive further into reflecting on and considering what ideas or lines of thinking might just be outdated, and how to potentially move past some of those thoughts. I know that sounds a little bit of abstract here. I'm recording this around the holidays. Again, the vast majority of folks around the world, the New Year's resolutions, etc., time for reflection. A number of folks might try to make changes in their life. Coming into the new year, only a handful of folks are able to pull off any of those changes. To me, resolutions, can be made and should be made, as soon as you decide to commit to a new line of behavior or habits, regardless of time of year. But, I totally get the sentiment about, utilizing a new year to turn over a new leaf. And, again, the holidays, again, kind of lend themselves to a bit more time for reflection. Work tends not to be as busy for most professions. And so you can really kind of start maybe considering some ideas or knocking out some tasks that just, get kicked down the road again and again and again. So to me, my wife and I are expecting another child over the next 6 months or so. And even though we're fortunate to have, pretty home to live in, like any parent can relate, like you have kids and just, the space just tends to get filled up. And, our 3-year-old daughter, like we just gotten her a whole bunch more stuff, and there's closets all over the place, and, including my office here, which you can kind of see in the background. You can't see the whole thing, but I, kind of keep it fairly sparsely decorated, more utilitarian here. But, the closet was just getting kind of packed with stuff, and I had a number of, things just kind of hanging on the wall that I've had as part of my life for, years, sometimes even decades. And so, over this past week, I think I'm similar to other folks, maybe even more anal about it. Just like, clutter just kind of bothers me here. Some people can just work in an area that's just, messes all over the place. To me, it's just like mentally distracting to have even physical clutter around it. Like my, eyes will just go to it, and again, just find it distracting here. And so like I was kind of feeling, even within the office, oh man, there's just like, I know I have too much stuff here. I just need to take a moment or an hour to just like take a look at this and what doesn't belong anymore. And it's not necessarily always purely like, okay, I'm not even going to use this item, but it's like, okay, why am I even hanging some of this stuff up? Is it still part of my thought process here? Like, is it even part of my identity anymore? And I think that latter point is something that we don't do often enough. And how frequently, when we really, start to examine why we have certain thoughts or ideas about, X topic, whatever, how, again, frequently those thoughts were just kind of placed into us by our environment, or our upbringing, parents or friends, family, what have you. Just, you as a younger version of yourself that kind of, ingested those type of thoughts, but are they really pertinent to you anymore? Like I think so many of us, so many humans around the world, like we just kind of operate on autopilot or never really seek to investigate some of those thoughts, and especially on a more routine basis. Like maybe you might examine things every 5-10 years, even 50 years down the line. But I think it serves all of us to kind of more frequently check in with this. Not necessarily an everyday thing, so you probably won't get anything done. Like sometimes you just need to like autopilot on some of these. Yeah, I mean, your office, like if you're just sitting around kind of, oh, what should I do with my office or clear a coat, like you're not going to get anything done. So it can't be like a constant thing, but it should be fairly routine, just to ensure you're actually staying mentally abreast of where your mindset truly sits. Like, who is the true you at this point, and what no longer belongs in your life or your brain. And so, just to run you through some examples as I was going through my office here, um, the most pertinent ones were just, some of these things that I had up on the wall. And, one that's I worked on, close to 10 years ago, coming out of medical school. And this is, out of all the different apartments and now home that I've lived in, like I've just taken it across multiple moves here, was like this larger quote wall. And a whole bunch of poster boards put together, and just writing down all these various quotes from various books that I had read over the years. Mostly books, some other types of quotes here. And like it mostly got filled up, and a lot of them were still relevant. And like I still identified with them even to this point in time. But, I hadn't updated or even wrote on that quote wall for years, like 5+ years, probably since I moved to Austin, like over 7 years ago. And so often, like you have some of these items within your physical space, and like they just become part of the background, and like you don't even like see them anymore. And so like that was similar to what happened with this quote walls. It's like, okay, it's been there, I've had it for many years of my life. I worked on it for a while, like there was some level of attachment to it. I'm like, yeah, there's still key wisdom, but I rarely sat and like considered a lot of the quotes, and some of them just like weren't relevant anymore. Me 10 years ago is just a different person. And especially since it wasn't a whiteboard, like it couldn't kind of consistently be re-updated, it didn't really fit in to my current mindset. And I think I was just holding on to it because it's like, yeah, you put a lot of effort into it. My wife would sometimes find inspiration from looking at it, and it's like, oh yeah, I've had it all this time. Like maybe sometimes I might find something on the quote wall that's like worth looking at. But it's like, this is taking so much real estate space and visual real estate space, like right behind my workstation. Like, why am I holding on to this? So, you know what? Hey, we live now in like a digital infrastructure. Like I can just take a picture of this. I can plug it into an AI too. And like, hey, you can kind of keep this and even add it into like, I don't know, custom instructions for some project. Like if you need to pick out a quote, like AI, just, grab it for me, and maybe that'll even be more reliable. But like, okay, I took a picture of it, thanked it for its time in my life. If you're familiar with like the Maria Kondo, the Japanese author work of, how to like declutter your house and just, it's not quite treating, things as people, but it's more, just appreciating the value that they had brought in your life and like being willing to move on with them. So I find that helpful. It's like, yes, that quote wall, it served its purpose within my life. And, what am I going to do later on with this thing? Like, are my kids going to want it? Probably not. Do I really want this in front of my workspace for like the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Like, is this going to be with me until I die? Like, when you start asking yourselves these things, like, a lot of the importance that you place on some of these objects, like it just starts to fall away. So, I moved on from that, and then I had, some other things, even like some old photos from like class pictures in medical school. And I'm like, a lot of these folks, like I'm never going to see again. That was a different time in my life. Like I appreciate it. I have a lot of, great memories from back then. Nostalgia is always kind of like, memories without the acute pain you were feeling back then. Like my life's definitely better now than it was in medical school. But it's like, yeah, why am I hanging this up in my visual sphere? Like I even had, some of these things that my parents had kept, like class photos from like 8th grade. It's like, again, I can kind of see myself, I can remind myself of, where I came from. But, a whole bunch of folks, like don't live in my hometown anymore. Like tons of folks I'm never going to see again. It's like, why are you hanging this up? Now I have kids of my own and stuff, just kind of moving on. Or even, some old sports fandom, like, North Carolina, Tar Heel, which like I'll follow, but I'm a fair weather fan. It's like, okay, what do you really need a banner or a pennant up here? You got this when you were like a teenager. So, maybe some of you can relate to that, but I do think it's worth kind of taking just an inventory of why do I even have some of these things anymore? Or like maybe you're just gifted some items from other folks and you kind of felt, oh yeah, it's kind of a nice gesture. And then they just sit on a shelf or sit in your room for a while and like, why am I really keeping this? Does it actually make any sense? And so, I just took down all of that. And now it's just a lot more clean. And you can kind of see maybe in the background, if you're seeing this on video, but like I have some of my, daughter's artwork in the background. It's like, you know what, this is the phase of the life that I'm in right now. Like if it's related to my family, and any artwork that, my daughter does, or, son when he's born, or any like, notes or memorabilia or other photos like with my wife or other family, like I'll throw those up. Or, we have these white walls around, but it's like if my kids want to color on them, sure, why not? Like that to me would just be more exciting, and again, kind of fits the phase of the life that I'm in right now. Like that is a reminder of what I'm working for day in and day out, and just have kind of continual reminders of my family. That's where I arrived at from that perspective. And also, like, I kind of like just the blankness of not having, a lot of items from the past. Like I know Rick Rubin, the famous music producer, like he just operates in an office where there's like no memorabilia or anything. Like it's all just future focused. Hey, what does the next day bring? Because he just doesn't want to be reminded by the past. Like it's all, okay, what am I going to create now? Like I appreciate that type of mindset. And then within the closet, like, okay, just had all these, you know, I'm sure like most people can relate, especially in today's, where we just inundated with so many electronics, like so many old cords and headphones that have just saved over the years. And how quickly that technology just becomes outdated. And it's like, I've saved this stuff up in, multiple different bins for 10 plus years. With how cheap some of this is, it's like, okay, even if I need one of these items, like I can probably just buy it for less than $10 on Amazon. Like, is it going to break the brain? No, none of this. But will it like save some of my sanity by just like getting rid of some clutter and just having a more clean workspace? Yes. So that was another piece where I'm just like, okay, just get rid of some of these items that you just don't need. And I generally try to have a rule in like other parts of the house too. It's like, okay, you almost have a mental timer going on. And again, it's easier to do this at the end of the year of, if I don't use something within a year, I'm probably never going to use it. Like that's I think a helpful framework for like almost anything physical that you have within your house. And I know a ton of people have like storage. I mean, this is the whole self-storage industry, right? Is like saving stuff just in case you need it. When in reality, like more than likely you're not ever going to need that. So no judgment for folks that are using self-storage, or maybe you have like bigger items or different recreational gear or something. But like, to me, that would be a massive warning sign personally if I'm getting like self-storage just to, basically keep my own junk that I'm never going to use again. So I would just rather get it out of the house. And that's something that's kind of nice in Texas as well too, is like pretty much no homes have basements, at least in Central Texas, because it's just so rocky. And so like you lose all of that extra storage space that a lot of it, when we grew up in the Midwest and had, crawl spaces and, the basement, you're going to shove more stuff. Like in Texas, since you don't have like you just have to be more efficient with your space utilization, and, more of your clutter is in your face there. So I kind of appreciate that as well. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on, what can you consider here while we, still going into the holidays here. Maybe you hear this later on, again, what kind of ideas are you keeping? And, who influenced you to even have these ideas in the first place? Like, who's gifting you some of these things? Like, my parents or family, like they tend to just, hoard more stuff. Like I grew up in a household where there was just a lot more trinkets and physical items, and I don't really embrace that. So it's like, if I'm being gifted, as much as I love my parents and family and so forth, like, do I need to take in, the items that they're giving me, or giving me, my wife or my kid? Or can I just like, accept them with gratitude, but then, just, kind of remove them or recycle them, whatever, give them away, because like we just have a different mindset about that. So again, not something that's always top of mind here. for a lot of folks, but I think it would serve us all well to kind of have these routine check-ins like, all right, what ideas do I need to reconsider here? Where am I at personally now? What phase of my life am I in? And if I really want to get to the next level, am I holding on to things unnecessarily, or just kind of accepting existing thoughts as just being part of my identity, when in reality they've just faded and are no longer where you want to be. Something to keep in mind, food for thought. Subscribe and share, everybody. Again, if you got land deals, seriousland.capital, $50K minimum purchase price. Looking forward to next time. Take care.